this is Carrie with Canary Quilts. We're on week 21 of our Dear Jane Quilt along. We are pretty much halfway through this for the year. We are making really good strides. It may seem like an intense schedule for a lot of you, but the videos will always be here, so you can go at your own pace. I have a link to the playlist down below that you can go see all of them. You can pick up where you left off, or you can start up right now and then go back to the beginning. We're doing these in random order. So hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to follow along if you're new here. And all the other fun stuff we got going along, you'll get notified of. But anyway, I am using EQ8 and I'm using the Dear Jane add-on for EQ8. So if you aren't using EQ8, you have the books. You may be able to take what I'm doing and apply it to the books. And you can also find the time codes for the construction of the blocks in the description down below if you don't want to watch the EQ8 stuff. But I will go through, like this week, I'm going through where I'm going to modify a block so there's no Y seams. So if you want to watch that, maybe you can figure out how to change yours from the book so you don't have Y seams. All right, so first thing that I do when I start up my EQ8 for the week is I go in and I populate my color quilt here. And I am using, these are the fat quarters. I'm actually using a bundle that I got that has different colored blues in it. So that's the colors I'm using this week. I have colored my blocks already, and I want to add them to my quilt. So A11 is going to go there. We have G10, L2, M4, and our RS8, our border. So I need to rotate that. We got 2 hearts in a row. She must have been feeling a lot of love for those 2 times that she was working on this border block. Anyway, let's go over to the blocks and take a look at what I'm going to be doing this week. All right, here's A11. This is the one that I want to take out the Y seams. So if we were to put this together, we'd have Y seams over here in all these corners. I don't want that. All right, so what I want to do is I want to square this off right here. So we basically will have a 4 patch in each of these corners. And then we'll have strips that we put on the outside instead of putting these corners in. All right, so I need to create this 4 patch. So let's draw this over and then draw this up. All right, so you can see what I'm doing is I'm starting to create a strip up here and then a short strip on the side. And then I've got a 4 patch here in this side. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to pull this all the way out and then pull this up. And then down here, we are going to want the top and bottom to be the long strip. So let's pull this one out and pull this one down. And then we'll do the opposite over here. Well, the same thing, I guess. All right, so let's take a look at our color. Color didn't change. Let's take a look at our foundation sections. And look at that, we have strips. We have a strip there, a long strip there, and then short strips on each side. We have these 4 patches. We have these center pieces right here, and we have the strip in the middle. So that looks great. I like the way that looks. No Y seams. So that was a quick change on how to change it out so there's no Y seams on this and make it a little easier, and it's going to look exactly the same. See? Looks exactly the same. All right, on to the next block. All right, next up we have G10 Woven Meadow, and I did one of these in a Halloween quilt I did, but it wasn't called Woven Meadow. It was like a family album or something like that. But anyway, let's take a look at the foundation paper piecing, and these are basically put together in strips except for the corners, so looking good there. No changes at all. Now we are on to L2 Stephanie Snowflake, and if we take a look at the foundation for this, again, it's very similar to the one that I modified before, Pebbles Protest A11. You got these two pieces and a center strip. So this isn't going to be, the sections are very well laid out in this one. So I don't think this will be a problem at all. And then we have M4 stepping stones. And this one again, look at the foundation pieces and pretty straightforward here. And then basically what you're going to be doing is adding these strips on the end and then putting these corners on. So that looks pretty simple. I am looking forward to doing that one. That one's going to be really pretty. All right. RS8, Love Forever. So we look at this bottom curve is pieced on. You could applique it on. And these three are applique pieces. So if we go over here to print and we go to templates, here's our applique pieces. Let's make me a little smaller, get me out of the way. And then here's the pieced bottom curve, which I don't think would be an issue to piece that curve. I'm not great at them, but I think I could do that. Or you could make one big rectangle or triangle and then applique this on if you wanted to. So I think I'll piece mine, let you know how it goes, but that is another option to this block. So pretty easy this week. Glad it's, I think last week was fairly easy. The week before was a real doozy. But yeah, looking forward to doing these blocks. I think the blues are going to be really pretty. But anyway, hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and we can have some fun together. And let's get started on our blocks. We are starting off with A11 Pebbles Protest. That's what it is. If you watched my EQ portion, I modified this so these corners were not Y-seamed in. So that's, I believe that's what these pieces are down here, some of the corners, and then these two, or these three here. Anyway, we just have a lot of little pieces to put together. So these are going to be really easy. These side pieces will be easy. I think I'll just put together one of these real quick, and then that gets applied to the rest of these, and then we have the outside on the back page here. So my pieces are, and you can find my cut pieces on my website in the description down below this video if you like my cut pieces. Let's see, we have these larger dark pieces, I believe are the triangles. And these smaller pieces are all these squares, these small squares. These are out here. These are rectangles that are going to go out here. And then the square is in the middle here. These longer pieces are all the border pieces here. All these squares are the white squares you see around in here. And all the rectangles are going to be for these triangles right here. All right, let me get set up to put one of these pieces here together. All right, here's the piece I'm going to put together and the pieces that I need for it. I went ahead and put everything else together. I've sewn these singular pieces to the paper piece so I can just cut them out later. Here's the pieces that I put together. I did make a modification on one of the pieces because I just wanted it a little bigger. So you're going to get a little bigger piece than I had. But these are pretty easy to put together, just kind of stacked. And these are all the little pieces. I just kept them all on there on one piece, and I'll get those cut out. But anyway, to get started on this piece, all these have been pretty easy to put together. The first two pieces on here are going to be my little dark and light squares. It's going to be the first two pieces right there. I've marked them on the back. White is number 1, so let's just make sure we have coverage. We have plenty of coverage. There's my seam allowance. There's my seam allowance. We're 1/4 of an inch over this at least and over that. So we're going to sew, lock stitch there, and between A1 and A2. There we go, first two pieces are on. I've gone ahead and trimmed for my third piece, which is going to be a white triangle. Well, it will be a white triangle. I'm using rectangles. So they're plenty long, plenty wide. Here's our seam allowance. It's off the paper, so you know it's plenty wide. We are now going to sew right here on this straight line between A1, A2, and A3. First 3 pieces, I did go ahead and trim between A3 and A4, my 1/4 inch. This is where this large rectangle is going to come in. Line it up. And the edges are going off the paper, and it's plenty wide to make it over to that point. So let's sew along this line here between A3 and A4. We're on to the last piece. That's my 4th piece. I trimmed my 1/4 inch, so you can see that my next white rectangle goes off the paper, and when we fold it, it'll go off the paper again. So last seam is right here between A4 and A5. There's the piece I demonstrated. I am going to go ahead and get all my pieces trimmed up, cut out, and let's see how all of these pieces end up going together to make our Pebbles protest. I have put my puzzle pieces out here. So this is what we're going for. We need to build our points in the middle. So that's what these pieces are. And we're just going to bring them in like that. And then they have half of our corners here, these 4-patch corners. So we need to fill in those 4-patch corners with these little tiny pieces we did. So we're going to put one here, we're going to put one there, and we're going to put one there. And then we're going to use 2 of them right here for this corner. So we have these dark squares, as you can see right there next to our inner star, I guess. And then these pieces come out here. We've got 2 short pieces and we've got 2 long pieces, which will eventually go on. And then we have our 4 exterior ones here, and there's 3 different sizes. So the way that's going to work is we're going to put one on the short side, and then we'll put these 2 on opposite ends, and then we'll put the long one on. So that's how it's going together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the remainder of my 4 patches, build that 4-patch, and then we'll come back and see how to put this whole thing together. Here's my corners put together. I'm going to put these 2 together and come back and see how that looks next to it. Here's these 2 pieces together. I think I was just doubting what I was seeing. So now this piece will work here, and then we can put these 2 together and it'll sew onto the middle to make our square. There we go. There's our center. Now we're going to add these 2 pieces onto this side, and then we'll add these 2 pieces. And again, we're going to just start adding our pieces as they fit around till we're done. There we go. A11 Pebbles Protest modified for no Y seams. That's a pretty labor-intensive block. I think we got a couple of those this week. All right, on to the next. We're working on G10 Woven Meadow. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. These are the sections we'll be working on. I think I'll do this section. It's got some triangles and some rectangles, and then you can apply that to the center here. Not many pieces, I should say, for this. We've got some white rectangles that go in the middle here, a couple of white squares that are right here, and a whole bunch of triangles that are going to be on the outside of this. The blue has 2 squares here, and then the rest of the blue is triangles. So if you like my cut pieces that I use here, you can find them on my website, and that link is in the description down below this video. So let me get set up to do that piece right there. I went ahead and put together one that is just like this one. And all my pieces worked great. I put these together too. These are pretty straightforward, just from one end to the other, putting them together. So these pieces are put together. This one is basically going to be put together in rows. You're starting up here with 1, then we're going to go to the next row with 2, 3, and 4, and then the next row with 5, 6, and 7. Let's turn it over. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. These 2 big pieces are the blue, and these outer pieces are the white. So we're going to start with a white triangle, and it goes off the paper. It covers my seam between 1 and 2, and then take a square, plenty big, falls on both sides of this seam right here. So let's go ahead and sew on the line between A1 and A2. There's the first 2 pieces. We need to trim it up so that we can put these 2 white pieces on. So we'll go to this side, we'll trim, and we'll trim the other side. We can do both of these at the same time, actually. A3 is on that side. It's going to be positioned like that. I'm going to line it up with the blue right here. I'm going to sew it between 2 and 3. And before I go over the ironing board, I'm going to pull this out of the way and do the same thing over here for 4. And I'll have that middle row done. I put these 2 pieces on at the same time and then took them over to the ironing board. So we can trim now on this line and put our next dark piece on. And we need it to be on both sides of these seam lines, and we have plenty of room, so we're going to sew on this line right there. My A5 piece is on. I've trimmed my 1/4 inch on both sides, and again I'm just going to put these on at the same time over at my sewing machine, and then I'm going to go ahead and get all my pieces trimmed up and we'll lay them out. There's all my pieces, pretty easy to lay out. This is the longest piece. It goes in the middle, and then you just take the next smaller pieces and put it next to it and mirror each side. So let's just work from the center out. And I'm pretty sure it looks like these notches will fit. There's no seams to match, so I'm just setting up the notches right here. You can see that they line up with the edge. And I'm going to have to imagine all of them are like that. So I'm going to put my block together. If I find out anything different, I'll come back and let you know. There we go. G10 woven Meadow. And I ended up ironing all my seams open. Worked out really well. Very pretty block. I've done this block before and I didn't do it paper piecing and it didn't turn out so square. So I like the paper piece version. Next is L2 Stephanie Snowflake. This is going to be another one of those labor-intensive blocks, but I don't expect it to be hard to put together. It's just a lot of pieces. This is what it's going to look like when we're done. I've got my cut pieces on my website, and that's in the link down below this description if you want to use my cut pieces for this foundation paper piecing. All right, so let's go through my cut pieces. I've actually got 2 pages. These long blue pieces are going to go over here. These rectangles will be in here. Triangles are the little blue triangles we see, and then these larger pieces are the squares in the middle. My white rectangles are going to be all these little rectangles you see. All 3 of these in the corners. I think that's it. I have a ton of triangles. We got a lot of little triangles right here that we need. Big triangles are going to be in the corner, and we have 1 white square that's going to be right here. All right. I was thinking maybe I'd put together a corner. It incorporates these slanted pieces, a triangle, and some rectangles. Other than that, I don't think it's going to be that hard to put together. It's just going to be a lot of work. Before we put together this piece, I want to show you that I have done 3 of them already, the other 3 corners, and they weren't that hard to put together. All my pieces fit well. I did these 2 pieces, pretty easy to put together. This one was real easy to put together. And then these 2. But let's get started on this one. Here's the back of this piece. The seam lines I've drawn out. We're going to start with this piece. White, and then blue, white, and white. So we have got 3 rectangles that are going to go 1, 3, 5, 2 triangles that are 2 and 4, and then this big triangle is number 6. So start with number 1. It's really not that hard to put together. Let's get it covered up, 1/4 inch over each of the seam lines. Grab my triangle, which is going to be oriented like this. I'm going to line up the corner of my triangle right here with this fabric, and it's plenty big. These are tiny little triangles. And we're going to sew between H1 and H2. Or 1 and 2, I should say. There we go. First two pieces. I've gone ahead and trimmed between H2 and H3 my 1/4 inch. So I am going to take one of my rectangles here and line it up. It's plenty big. And we're going to sew on the line between H2 and H3. There's our center white strip. I trimmed along H4 my 1/4 inch. Gonna take my other triangle, and it needs to be oriented like that. So we'll just flip it over, lay it on there, and sew here between H3 and H4. First 4 pieces are on. Did the same thing. Trimmed between H4 and H5. Grab my last little rectangle, line it up here, and it's plenty big. Just line it up along with these fabrics and sew on the line between H4 and H5. Last thing to do is add our big triangle here. Trimmed it up, and this is plenty big, so just kind of center that on there. And we'll sew on this line right here, and then I'm going to get all my pieces trimmed up and we'll lay it out to assemble. I started laying my block out and was like, okay, where do these fit? And one thing EQ8 doesn't do is it does put on the first page what block you're working on, but the second page it doesn't. So I had this in the wrong packet. This needs to go with M4 stepping stones. So we don't need these for this. Anyway, I'm sorry if I confused you from the beginning. These are actually in the next block. So I'm going to put them in here. And we'll just finish making this block. All right, here's how it's laid out. I feel a little foolish right now. These 3 go in the center, and then these 2 right here are on the outside, and we want these thinner lines here to form an X. That's why it's on this side here and this side here. Then we'll add these here to complete out the other side of the X. And then we have 2 different shapes of corners. So we want our 2 shapes to match. So this straight edge one will go opposite each other, and then this one will go opposite each other. So what I want to do is I want to add these 2 together, and just pay attention to which way this is ironed, and iron that in the opposite direction. And then the same here. And then I'm going to put these 3 rows together, and I think I'll iron it open. I'll see. I'll let you know when I come back. I actually ended up ironing towards that center strip because of all these seams right in here. So now I want to put on the corners that have these squared off edges. And I'm going to do both of these, and I think I will probably iron these towards the corners. First 2 corners are on. I ironed towards the corner, and now we're going to put the next corners on, and you can line up seams, line up notches, and I'm going to get these sewn on. I think I will iron towards these corners also. There we go, L2 Stephanie Snowflake. That's what hers looks like. And that's what mine looks like. Some pretty labor-intensive blocks this week. We are on M4 stepping stones, another labor-intensive block. This actually has 2 pages, and if you saw this in the last block, it's because I accidentally put it with my last block, and I had the wrong color sewed onto my pieces. So I do have my white triangles ready to go. I've cut my blue for these pieces, so I will have this correct. But one thing EQ8 does not do is if it prints a second page, it doesn't put down here what it is, or it doesn't put the heading up here. So I put this page with the wrong block. So now I have it with the right block. But anyway, these long strips are for back here. These triangles are the ones that are in here. I've got a ton of these little tiny strips for these pieces all around in here. White triangles are in the corners, and then a bunch of these rectangles for in here and the squares. Whew, let's just do this one right here. It seems to have everything in it. and then it can be applied to the rest of them. So I'm going to get set up. I went ahead and put all these pieces together. This is the one we're going to be putting together. They're all pretty much exactly the same type of construction. So it's not hard. It just takes a little bit of time. So put something you want to listen to on, because you'll be here a while, especially with all these blocks this week. That's what we're going for. Here is the block, or the section we want to do. And it starts here with this white rectangle and goes to the blue triangle and then to the white triangle. But what I'm changing up is I'm going to make this 4 and this 5. So I want to build up the middle and then add the sides. So that's what I've done on this side. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 and 6. So we want to start with our white rectangle and our blue triangle. I'm just going to put them together, lay it over top of our 1 and 2, about 1/4 of an inch. Plenty of room on over here on these seams, so we want to sew now between A1 and A2. There's my first 2 pieces. Now I want to add the 2 white triangles, and I actually went ahead and trimmed both sides, but I'm just going to add the first one, and it's pretty small. We need to basically come out to here, so I'm going to line my points up right there. And then sew on the line between A2 and A3. There's the first side of our flying goose. I'm going to add the other side, which is the other white triangle, center it up, and sew on the line between my A2 and A4. There's our flying goose. Now we're going to add the 2 blue strips. I went ahead and trimmed those up on both sides. I can actually add both of them at the same time since they're on opposite sides. And here are our seam allowances. So we're looking good there. So I'm going to get both sides of these sewn on and then get everything trimmed up, and we'll put our block together. Here's all my pieces laid out. You want to lay them out in rows like this. So your 2 flying geese with the 2 blue edges will be here, and then the 2 flying geese without any blue edges are here. And then you want to box in those white squares right here, and then box them in right there also. That's about it. You got a 9 patch here. I'm going to put them together in rows like this, columns I guess, and then we'll come back and we'll put the blue pieces on. They should fit. Okay, I'm going to put my 9 patch together, and then we'll come back and put the edges on. There's my center block put together. Just took some time. I ended up, when I put the rows together, I ironed those open, but the other rows I ironed away from the center on all 3 of them because their seams didn't match up. I put one of these edges on to see how it fit great, so I'm going to finish putting on the blue edges, and then we'll put on the corners. There's my blue strips put on, and I ironed those towards the blue strips. I'm going to put my corners on, and those fit really nice. I'm going to sew them on, and I'm going to iron these towards the corner. There is M4 stepping stones. Another labor-intensive block. Luckily not too hard though. So these have taken me a while to put together. That's pretty. We're on RS8 Love Forever. That's what it's going to look like. We have another heart block. This one should be way easier than the ones we just did. Take less time. Let's put it that way. It'll take less time because all of these pieces are applique. So I've transferred my applique, and I use the sewing line, not the seam allowance line, for all of my pieces. And I've got my triangle cut out. So what I need to do is get these cut out, and we'll start laying them down on my triangle. There's my pieces cut out. You want to make sure that you do have a 1/4 of an inch over here, and along the bottom also. So I'm kind of, right now I'm using my cutting board, but when I'm ready to put it down, I will use a ruler. And then these are going to just kind of get lined up in the middle on top of each other. I think I'm just going to eyeball it and see how it looks. So, pretty quick block. I like it after those last few. There we go, fused it down. RS8, love forever, all applique. Love it. And there we are, done with week 21. These are all these labor-intensive blocks compared to that last block that we did. Whew, a lot of work there. All right, we are done with week 20. So this week, I wouldn't call it hard. It just is going to take a little bit of time. So find a good TV show, good podcast, listen to the radio, and just start working away. Because it just is going to take a little bit of time. But they're still fun to do. I modified this one for no Y seams. Let me know if you didn't do that or if you did something different. I love to hear from you. And, oops, they're really cute. I really like them. Such cute little blocks in Dear Jane. And our other heart side block, which was really easy. So, there you go. Let me know how it's going for you. Let me know if you're populating your quilt in EQ8, if you're using EQ8, with your photos. I think it's a blast to see how it's turning out with the photos. If you're not sure how to do it, I do have a video, and that's in the link in the description down below if you want to watch that video and learn how to populate your quilt with your photos. But anyway, let's do that right now. So let's go. Dear Jane, A11, Pebbles Protest. Dear Jane, G10, Woven Meadow. Dear Jane, L2, Stephanie Snowflake. Dear Jane, M4, Stepping Stones. And our RS8, Love Forever. I think that puts us halfway. Just about halfway. So, next week, I literally missed it when I was scheduling this out. So what I think I'll do is go through the sashing, how many pieces we're going to need, how big they are, how we might be able to start putting these together now, or at least how I think I might do it. And we'll go from there. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, leave your comments below. I love to hear from you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.